Hello everyone and welcome to the Gunpla Network. I'm the Spicer, and today's review of the Re-100 Vigna Ghina from Gundam F91 comes due courtesy of those fine folks over at Canadian Gundam. Canadian Gundam is your one-stop shop for all things Plamo and Gunpla here in North America. With flat rate shipping to the US and Canada, a private warehouse option, and a vast catalog that's restocked regularly, they're going to have just about anything you're looking for. So when you're checking that vast catalog and placing your next order, don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10% off. Now, I'm going to be very upfront about this and say I'm not a huge fan of the Vigna Ghina design to begin with. So this wasn't starting like super high on my list of like, oh, I'm super excited and hopefully this turns out really, really well. This is a design that if it had been pulled off really well in execution, I'd have been like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool, and maybe would have a chance to stay on my shelf. But it didn't really, and it doesn't really. So unfortunately, this is really just in both design and in execution gonna fall flat for me. Now, that being said, I do want to give this a fair shake in case anyone out there is a fan of the Crossbone Gundam, or Crossbone Vanguard Gundam. Crossbone Vanguard Mobile Suits. I cannot stop saying Gundam because I'm thinking Crossbone Gundam. Personally, I don't really like the Crossbone Vanguard designs up until you get to the Crossbone Gundams. So everything that appears in F91, I'm just like not sold on almost at all. Very not great, unfortunately, but regardless, here we are. So, this is a design visually is not bad. Kind of. I think the torso is too small, and that's a fairly common thing, at least from the Crossbone Vanguard suits of F91. It's very kind of wing-esque in that regard, but the arms and legs just are much, much bigger, and it feels very disproportionate. And the head is too tall. So I guess the neck is too tall, unfortunately. But these two are like 50-50. It's a design thing, but at the same time, it's an execution thing. Both of these things could have been changed in the actual plastic model, and I don't think anyone would have cared. But unfortunately, they were not, so here we are. Now, outside of that, everything else visually speaking, I'm pretty into. The arms look cool, the tubing is great on the shoulders, there's a big thruster in purple under the shoulder, which is pretty cool, and you get the like hand guards on the end of the like wrist, and that's pretty cool. I actually really like those. They don't get in the way, and they kind of cover the purple backs of the hands, which I think could have been much better in like the gray color or the navy color. Purple I just don't think works very well. So the more they're covered up, the better. And then on the right arm, you also have the beam shield emitter, which is fine. It is a little weird that it's on like 3 big pegs, so it looks a little jank, but once again, kind of the Crossbone Vanguard's whole aesthetic. The waist is fine, the legs are fine. Like I said, this is not a design I was like, oh, I'm 100% here for it. I will say, however, out of the 2 stickers, or I guess 3 stickers I used, the 2 on the feet, the 2 blue ones on the front of the feet are awful. Terrible. I do not use them. Like, it would be easier just to go in with like a Gundam marker or paint if you are really that dedicated. But otherwise, I'd just leave them gray. Now, outside of that, probably the most like distinct part of the silhouette is the backpack. The big fins that come out are articulated. They look great. The purple plastic does mark pretty significantly, so be careful with that. A lot of the kit is undergated, but unfortunately the big thruster portions of the fins on the backpack that are purple are not. So you're going to have that situation pop up when you're building this, unfortunately. But outside of that, visually, it is what it is. Now, as you will see here, you have a beam rifle. Not a great beam rifle, and it sits very high in the hand. It is what it is. None of this thing was like really like screaming at me like, oh, this is cool. the beam rifle's another part of that. It's fine. It's passable. If you're a Vigna Ghina fan, you're probably going to like it. If you don't have any idea what the suit is, I can't imagine that you're super sold on it design-wise, and the beam rifle's not going to help. It does sit very tall in the hand, but depending on what type of pose you use, it's kind of easy to hide. So it's not the biggest problem in the world, but it's not great either. Now, you do get a beam bazooka, which is pretty cool. That's fine. It's very simple. There's no scope on it. It has a swing out handle, and it also has like the two tip things on the end of the barrel of the bazooka. They don't move, but yeah, it's fine. It's all one piece of one color of plastic, so it's not going to be really crazy looking, but it's a decent accessory. And kind of the last major accessory outside of the beam sabers that we'll look at in a minute that you get is the beam shield. And my continued issue with beam shields is present here as well. They're too big, they get in the way, and this is probably one of the worst examples of it. Now, visually, it looks fine. Its execution is the problem. The 3 pegs that peg into the arm do not hold very solid. So when you're trying to switch this out, you're not going to be able to leave it on the arm. And when it is on the arm and you're moving it around to try to not hit the fins on the back or the shoulder, it's probably going to fall off once or twice. So be careful when you're doing it, and you're fine, but it is just an annoyance that beam shields are not like good for any kind of like actual plastic model kit. I understand why this keeps happening in universe, but like, we need to figure out a better solution for this in a plastic model kit form factor. Now, outside of that, as I said, you do have some beam sabers, and those are stored on the back skirt, which is actually pretty cool. They're actually nice beam sabers too. Like, I like the hilts. They're a little unique, but you have to basically remove the backpack to get to them. So, while it's cool that it's stored on the mobile suit, you can't access them easily, so I'd almost rather these had been on a backpack peg, as basic as that is. This is much more kind of like a hyakushiki on the back skirt type situation, and yeah, they're just not easy to get to, which is really unfortunate, because it's kind of cool when you can see them and they're stored in like a unique place, and you want to be able to access them or show them off, and then you can't because the backpack's too big. Now, if you do decide to put this on a stand, you absolutely can do that. There is a piece, D1 3 or 30 or something like that, I can't remember exactly, that just slides on to the bottom of the waist, and then it's just a big peg that goes down into the kind of dual-sided adapter for most of your action bases. It's fine. It holds tight, but once again, this is not a thing that you're going to be like really getting a bunch of cool, convincing action poses out of. Partially because of just what it is, but also like the accessories outside of the beam sabers are just not going to sell a lot of dynamic action. The beam rifle sits too high in the hand. The beam bazooka works better, but it also is just a big chunk of plastic basically, so you're not really doing too much there. And the beam shield is just too big and cumbersome to really get any nice, convincing poses. So all that being said, how does this fit into the grand scheme of people buying Gunpla and building it? If you're an F91 fan, you're a Crossbone Vanguard fan, you like the 1/100 scale, and you're kind of an F91 completionist, great. This is for you. This is why this kit exists. If you just want to build something that's got cool engineering, if you don't care for like F91 or these designs, this is an easy pass. This is not a like really cool, overly engineered kit. There are a lot of better options, even in like a 1/100 no grade, that I like. The 1/100 no grade Savior is more engineered than this, I think. That has a transformation, so that's a little cheating, but you kind of understand what I'm going for. This is very niche. And I'm not part of that niche. So, like, this is not a must-buy for me. But there are people out there that I think, like, this serves a purpose in a collection, but it's just a very specific one. F91 completionists, be happy, because this is probably the only time you're going to get this in this scale. This is never getting a master grade. But if you do own this, let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. If you are thinking about purchasing it, put your comments or questions in the comments below, and we'll do our best to answer them. And as always, friends, I've been the Spicer with the Gunpla Network. Please do your best to stay safe, and keep on building.